Hi, Karen Curry Parker here with your weekly Human Design Evolution Report. The celestial weather, huh? We've got a lot to talk about as we have had all freaking year, and it's gonna be like this for a long time. So keep riding the roller coaster of the celestial weather, and we'll unpack for you everything that you need to think about this week. So we ended last week with the summer solstice, with Mercury going into retrograde. We have a couple of days this week where we have 6 planets in a retrograde cycle. So before we go into anything else, I just want to throw a little bit of a red flag on the play and say, this is a time when you're going to potentially feel like there's not a lot of momentum, where it's going to feel like we're quagmired in something, and it's going to be something that has the potential to feel a little bit uncomfortable or a little bit like we're in the void of sorts. We are in the process of dismantling so many pieces of our story, both on a personal and a collective level. And that dismantling process, especially in the context of how turbulent and extreme some of that dismantling has been, has kicked us into a space that is a space that feels really devoid of movement, devoid of momentum. We're looking at what's not working. We're redefining what we want, but we're kind of in this empty spot where we're not quite sure exactly where we're headed, and we're not quite sure exactly who we really want to be now that we've shed all this other stuff. And it's leaving us in a little bit of an uncertain state that doesn't necessarily feel comfortable. We like it when we know what's next, but I want you to embrace the idea that we are in the midst of an extreme cycle of pattern disruption. When we look at where we are at the beginning of this week, we start the week with new moon in the gate 15, with solar eclipse in the gate 15, with the sun transiting in the gate 15 until it moves to the 52 on Thursday. This gate 15 in traditional human design is the gate of extremes in rhythm. And in the quantum human design system, we call this the gate of compassion. So I want to unpack this energy for you because it's so important. We are looking at energies in the logical circuit. Logical circuitry, and this is one of the 3 ways of knowing in human design. Logical circuit is all about patterns. It's about being able to predict the future based on our understanding of what's come before. Things like scientific methodology are embodied metaphorically in the logical process. Anything that is a system of sorts, whether it's the school system or the government system or the education system, anything that has the word system associated with it, is a logical collective structure. It is logic by nature is formulaic and somewhat linear and very potentially rigid and predictable. Nature has logic associated with it. Now, I want to make sure that you understand I'm talking about logic and patterns and not reasoning, which is something very, very different. And I think in our culture, when we talk about logic, we equate it with reasoning, and it's not reasoning necessarily. It's just patterns and understanding patterns. So nature has patterns. In fact, the patterns of nature give us comfort and help us do the right thing that we need to do to ensure our survival, right? We plant our gardens in the springtime because we know that that's going to be the season that most likely is going to lead to a healthy crop in the fall. We plan our days according to the movement of the sun. We have rhythm in nature that gives us information that allows us to tailor our actions to best meet our needs. But even built into logic, we have the potential for disruption in the pattern. If you think of the rhythms of nature, like sunrise and sunset and seasons, the things that are predictable about nature, we also know that nature has cataclysmic events that disrupt the natural patterns or the daily or the weekly or the monthly or the seasonal patterns, right? We have hurricanes and tornadoes and earthquakes and other kinds of events that disrupt the pattern. And that disruption oftentimes can lay waste to the landscape, right? And sort of force us to have to build anew. And every time we have a disruption in that pattern, it gives us an opportunity to rebuild. And when we look at the idea that we are by nature evolutionary beings designed to grow and expand in consciousness and embody with each revolution of each revolution in our evolution, we are designed to grow and grow more towards the expression of the heart. Disruption in logical patterns, extreme disruptions in logical patterns, create the potential for compassion, for us to realign our patterns with heart so that we can move closer and closer to unifying ourselves around pattern ideas that ultimately are rooted in the heart, in compassion, and create for us ultimately a way of organizing ourselves together in unifying ways, in an egalitarian way that makes sure that each and every one of us in the process of crafting and engineering our own lives, that we all have a voice, we all have a seat at the table. We're not there yet, okay? That part I get. And I want you to understand that part of what's going on in this cycle that we are in is we are disrupting the pattern. We are looking at the infrastructure and what's not working in the infrastructure, what's out of alignment with compassion, what's out of alignment with a pattern that is equitable and just and sustainable and abundant. And we're taking it down. We are in an extreme way disrupting that pattern. And maybe we need to even be more extreme in some cases in disrupting that pattern. And we're creating an opening ultimately for us to rebuild, to change the nature of the landscape of the human story, and to rebuild with compassion from heart a new way of being in the world that is egalitarian, that is equitable, that is just. So we're getting there. We're getting to those places that we, maybe in the heart of who we are individually and maybe even in collective groups, we've been longing for a long, long time. But it's a process that isn't necessarily going to happen overnight. It's a process that takes an enormous amount of consciousness and awareness and deliberation and an attunement to what's needed next to build something new as we dismantle what's not working. So this energy right now, especially with the intensity of the number of planetary positions, and it's also part of the nodes that we're in right now. Our nodes are in the 15 and the 10, meaning where our plot line for our story, our human story that we're in the middle of, is all about taking things apart in extreme ways and rebuilding them with compassion. So this is what we're in the midst of right now, this extreme, intense disruption in the pattern. Here's the parts, some other parts for you to consider. The Earth this week is in the gate 10, starts in the gate 10. Now we started this at the end of last week. We're moving into this energy again until Thursday. And I'll tell you about Thursday in just a minute. But this gate 10 energy, this Earth energy, is what grounds us. It's what has to be in place first. It's the foundation upon which we build in order for us to more effectively be able to fulfill the purpose that the sun is bringing us. The sun is saying, hey, we need to be more compassionate. We need to unify ourselves around compassionate ideas and share more of who we are and what we have with each other. The 10 says you can't do that until you love yourself first. Here's the deal. If we're going into a situation where we're building from a place of compassion, if you go into a place of building or amplifying the compassion, you can only amplify that compassion to the degree to which you love yourself. If you don't love yourself, you have, first of all, you run the risk of sliding into blaming mode, sliding into victimhood mode, and putting other people in the position where you're holding them responsible for making you feel loved. That's the first potential. The second potential is you go into anything you create with a hidden agenda. Or maybe it's not even so hidden sometimes. And that hidden agenda says, hey, I'm going to do all these great things and I'm going to share all this stuff. And I'm going to do it because you're going to see how lovable I am when I do these amazing things for you. That hidden agenda only carries you so far until it starts to backfire. And it starts to backfire in a depletion of energy, it'll start to backfire in the form of resentment, or it'll start to backfire in a way that doesn't make the act that you took originally, no matter how well intended it was, it doesn't keep that compassionate action in a sustainable place. Hidden agendas are like having really bad chinking in your log cabin. Your house that you build, if you're out of alignment, is going to eventually crumble. You can't build sustainably if there's underlying hidden agendas. So when you're trying to prove your lovability or your value by doing good things because you're trying to define yourself as a good person and you're not really doing it first from a place of self-love, the intention is there, the desire is there, but it can't hold and it can't last. And it starts to make it very, very messy and very, very personal. And it moves it out of the place of service into potentially a place of martyrdom, which by nature isn't sustainable, or other more complex, more subtle, but messy, unsustainable patterns of creating. So you got to tackle the self-love piece first. Now, I've been telling you guys this for weeks now. We are in a cycle where one of the biggest things we all need to be doing on a personal level is clearing our own karma around our self-worth and our lovability. It is technically selfish, but it is actually the most revolutionary, selfless thing you can do right now, because when you can step into a supercharged situation that is in the need of dismantling and reconstruction, and you can go into that with the purest of intention and without hidden agendas, and do it because you want to serve the greater good, then you walk into that situation and you have the ability to create sustainably from that place. I can't stress for you enough how important this work is. And so on Thursday, when the sun moves into the gate 52 and gives you the big picture perspective on what's going on, and the earth brings you in the gate 58, the gate of the joy of mastery, we get a little bit of a pause at the end of this week, which is good. We need it. We've had a really rough roll lately, and it's not going to necessarily get any better. And that rough roll that we're in is calling on us to take pauses, to take little places in this process of taking everything down where we pause and we connect in the stillness of these pauses with whatever work we need to do on the internal plane first, so that we can create then more effectively in a more aligned way on the external plane. So I want to really remind you that you've got to, of course, do the work of taking things down. Of course, do the work of continuing to hold the vision of where we want to go. But you've also got to do the work of clearing your own personal karma around these issues. We can't build sustainably. We can't build equitably. We can't build justly. We can't build abundantly or peacefully if we're bringing our own stuff, our own hidden agendas, our own need to prove our value, our own need to prove our lovability into the mess. Do the right thing because you have the energy and the foundation from which to do the right thing. Don't do it because you're trying to prove something else, or you're trying to do it out of guilt or blame or shame or whatever else might be accompanying your own issues. It's tricky, and not everybody's going to like this message. But if you want to build sustainable change, we first have to be sustainable ourselves as part of the bricks that lay the foundation for the next phase in evolution in humanity. All right, so again, gentle reminder, we have 2 days this week where we have 6 planets in retrograde, and then Venus goes direct. So we are definitely still quagmired in the cosmic goo. And I want to encourage you to think of it this way. The planets are saying, well, time out. You guys are doing good work. You guys are doing massively important work. You're really taking things down that need to be dismantled. You're doing the work of the world right now. You're setting the stage for a rebirth of the human story. And we're proud of you. And we're so thankful for you doing this work. And pace yourself. Slow and steady wins the race. And I will say to you, and I've said this to you guys before this year, but I'll say it again, and this is what I tell my kids all the time. Life is long. It's not short. We say life is short. I've lived long enough to know life is long. And it's long enough for us to be able to make the changes necessary, to be resilient in this process of transformation, and for us to do it in a way that supports us in doing our own inner work, becoming vessels of love ourselves, so that other people can then drink from the container that we're holding, and they can become fulfilled and we stay fulfilled ourselves. This is where we're headed, where you will be able to, through taking your own pause, your own respite, your own self-sustenance, be able to sustain others more sustainably, in a more enduring and in a more transformative, empowered, and loving way. So take care of yourselves this week. This season we're in our human story is going to go on for a while. We're not going to be done in July or August or September. This particular cycle is probably going to go on until February of next year, and then who knows what's next. So slow and steady wins the race, and it's okay. There's no rush. We're going to get it right. But keep focusing on clearing up your own karma around your value, because you need to remember that you are a once-in-a-lifetime cosmic event, and so is everybody else on the planet. We need to all start acting that way, all right? Have a great week.